AI and agents are going to fundamentally change the way that we interact with the internet. At least in Silicon Valley, it's fairly well understood that the concept of websites is going to be like rotary phones of having to type in a URL address. And so where the future is one where agents are able to go out across the internet, programmatically pull information from different sources, and then deliver it to you in a programmatic new interface.
You guys want everyone everywhere in AI integrating you and facilitating their transactions by you. That is more valuable than $1, $100, $1,000, $1 million. It's more valuable than $10 million. This is really, really smart. It's really uncommon outside of Silicon Valley. You'd be surprised. It's the reason why companies out here win, because they're willing to think three-dimensionally.
You're listening to the Startup Podcast. This is a spotlight episode, in-depth and frank conversations with founders about their startups. Whether you're a founder, investor, or operator in a startup, you'll gain essential insights into how some of the best founders in the world think about their business and what it takes to turn a vivid vision into a practical reality. The conversation starts now.
Hey, I'm Chris Saad.
Hi, Amir Sarhangi.
And I'm Craig DeWitt.
Hello and welcome to our first ever Spotlight episode. Spotlight episodes are going to be an opportunity for us to pick a particular player in the ecosystem and go really deep with them. Maybe it'll be a founder, maybe it'll be a VC, maybe it'll be an author, and to really unpack what they're doing, why they're doing it, and how they're doing it, and find opportunities for you guys in the audience to hear from amazing people, but maybe also provide some color commentary about why this particular thing is working, or maybe it's why it's not working and what you can learn from it. This is our very first try at doing one of these things. Please be kind, but also please provide feedback. Go to tsp.show or jump in the comments and let us know how it went. Tell us what worked, tell us what didn't work. We want to always be delivering great content for you guys every week. Today, we have a company called Skyfire. I'm not going to tell you very much about them because I want you to learn from their pitch and feel what it's like to be a VC hearing about it for the first time. But suffice it to say, they're involved in payments for agents, agent-to-agent payments, making that really slick and easy. And this is a super important space. These guys know what they're doing. They've been funded by some of the best investors in the world and in the Valley. They're making waves. And so pay close attention to how they talk and what they're talking about, and I'll provide some color commentary along the way. All that and much, much more coming up after the break.
Whether you're starting or scaling your company's security program, demonstrating top-notch security practices and establishing trust is more important than ever. Vanta automates compliance with SOC 2, ISO 27001, and more, saving you time and money while helping you build customer trust. Plus, you can streamline security reviews by automating questionnaires and demonstrating your security posture with a customer-facing trust center, all powered by Vanta AI. And it gets even better. Just for TSP listeners, you can get $1,000 off Vanta when you go to vanta.com/TSP. That's VANTA.com/TSP for the Startup Podcast to get $1,000 off.
All right, before we jump into it, just want to talk about the Startup Podcast Pact. If you're getting some value from the show, you've listened to a few episodes and you go, hey, this is not too bad. We only ask for a few things in return. Please subscribe to us and give us a rating on your favorite podcatcher. It helps us get more ratings, more reviews, and helps people know that the show is great. And give us a shout out on your favorite social network. It helps us grow the show and help more founders like you. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter over at tsp.show. You get to mainline our content, get updated about new episodes, some content from Yanev and I, and a whole bunch more. Subscribe over at tsp.show. All right, with that, let's jump straight into it. So Amir, Craig, tell me just 5 seconds, what is your title and what is your involvement with the company?
I'm CEO and co-founder, and my focus really is on the investor side and on sales and working with a lot of our customers.
And Craig?
I'm a co-founder and the head of product. So I'm responsible for building things that people want.
Excellent, excellent. So like we talked about a little bit before we started recording, the idea here is this is sort of like a VC pitch meeting. So, we've just hooked up, we've just met, you've come into the office. I don't know if everyone listening has gone to a VC pitch meeting. They're a little bit nerve-wracking. You got to, walk into their swanky offices, set up your laptop, get assigned a conference room by the front desk person, and wait for the partners to show up often. So let's say we've done all that. You're ready to go. We'd love to learn about your startup in that frame, in that artifice of a VC pitch, so that others can learn from you, and maybe VCs can even hear about you. So let's get started the way you'd normally start.
Well, very nice to meet you, Chris. And thanks for having me in your offices. First, I'd like to give you a little background on myself and my co-founder, and then tell you a little bit about our company,
Sounds great.
if that works for you.
Yeah, awesome.
So my background is, this is actually my third startup. First one was during the internet boom. Luckily, I raised money and quickly burned through it and tapped out, primarily because the business I was going after, I really didn't understand the customer. I was way too early for the market. And then the fact that the internet kind of meltdown happened helped me get out faster than probably I would have otherwise. The second startup I did was a little bit later. I had a little bit more experience, and then it was in the messaging space. And really our vision there was to replace SMS and make the experience on mobile phones very similar to how iMessage looks today across all phones. So we actually ended up doing that. And that company was around for about 10 years before we got acquired by Google. And that was in 2015. That became the default messaging for Android. And just recently, it also got supported by iPhone. So the whole world now supports this protocol called RCS, which means that you have this kind of ubiquitous experience, very similar to WhatsApp and other, kind of leading experiences out there.
Wait a second. So you're telling me you laid the foundation for RCS? Is that what you're saying?
That's right. It was not just myself. Of course, we had a team, and actually one of my colleagues in the new company, Utah, was our VP of engineering. Elmar, who was our CTO, is currently still at Google, leading the efforts there. So yes, that was quite a journey, and it was amazing working at Google. Was there for about 3 years and worked alongside a lot of great people to do deals with mobile carriers and device manufacturers like Samsung. So that was an amazing journey. From there, I went and joined Ripple, where I led product for Ripple. And Ripple is essentially a company that is focused on cross-border payments and making that experience amazing for banks and remittance companies. There, I met Craig, who's my co-founder, and I led product for Ripple. And in that journey, was there about 4 years, we essentially worked to create a cross-border payments business that was leveraging essentially a cryptocurrency that was called XRP. And that experience was to make it really, really simple for remittance companies to be able to instantly move money across the world, anywhere across the world. And that was the first of its kind. We rolled that out to a lot of major banks and other financial institutions. After 4 years, we decided that we're going to go on our own, and Skyfire was born.
Awesome. So, Amir, if you don't mind, I'm going to give some running commentary on each of these pieces. I think part of it might be asking questions and digging deeper, and part of it maybe providing color commentary for the audience to understand how a great pitch works, right? So, in your background, you did something very specific there where you said, luckily we failed out of that fast. And you owned up to like not understanding the customer. It was too early. This is really great credibility building, right? You understand, and you're demonstrating that you understand startups are about learning quickly and failing fast. And you're demonstrating what you learned, right? That the product market fit matters, that timing matters. You mentioned RCS, and you sort of mentioned it in a fairly casual way, in a fairly humble and understated way, right? That's another thing that's great about excellent founders. They speak in a fairly humble way rather than in a way that's hyperbole or grandiose or self-aggrandizing. And most VCs will know what RCS is. And so you kind of snuck up on it and you're like, oh shit, okay, cool. And you mentioned deals with carriers, deals with manufacturers, device manufacturers. So now automatically I'm thinking this guy knows how to get deals done. He knows how to get stuff done, right? And then also when you mentioned Ripple, you snuck up on crypto, right? I know what Ripple is. I know it's crypto based, but in this cycle, crypto is not the cool thing. So you start with the value prop, right? You start with cross-border payments. You start with what problem you're trying to solve. And yeah, there's some tokens in there somewhere. And so but also I imagine this is, you're in a payments company here. So you're making some connective tissue onto payments. So I just wanted to explain how I read that as a third party, as an investor, as someone who's helping you go through this pitch.
Yeah, I think that was actually, you picked up on a lot of nuances there for sure. And definitely, I mean, we're leveraging crypto in this new business, but we don't tend to talk a lot about it, and primarily because of the same reasons that you mentioned. The other thing is when we speak to investors, it's very important to establish credibility in terms of like, why us, right? Craig has been in the business of payments for 7 years. He understands crypto really well. I've done 4 years of it. And then with Jibe, which was the company I sold to Google, that was essentially, think of that as a protocol that became essentially an open protocol across, the ecosystem. So we're doing very similar things here with Skyfire. And that was really important for me, was as I was pitching a lot of these investors, it was important for them to understand that we've done this before and we're doing something with a very grand vision, but we've done it before. So it's not the first time we've been about this.
And of course, the meta point here is you're talking about pre-seed, seed stage. The first thing you're starting with is the team and the pedigree of the team. So, why do I believe in these people? Because they have no business. They have no, very little traction likely. You start with who you are and why I should believe that you're a great operator. What's next in your story?
So Skyfire essentially enables AI agents who are in themselves autonomous ability to be able to hold balances, be able to make payments and receive payments, all without humans being involved. That is a really important step here in the AI evolution as we see it, because today AI agents can't really complete a lot of the tasks that they want to be able to do, primarily because they can't do financial transactions. They have to stop, wait for a developer or an enterprise to get involved to unlock access to an API, access to data, whatever that agent needs. It needs the help of a human being in order to kind of move forward in its tasks. So really what we're set out to do is enable that to be completely autonomous and enable AI agents to be able to purchase things and also monetize by being able to accept payments and sell their services all on demand and instant.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, if I can use a really blunt and crude analog, this is like PayPal for agents, right? So
Yeah.
if I'm an agent and I need to get something done, I have a wallet of some amount of funds. I've been tasked by my owners, my colleagues, my biological colleagues to go do something. This is a stipend or a wallet or an amount that I can go spend to get that task done. And there's, I imagine, some kind of protocol there where I can negotiate a fee and transfer that fee to another agent, hopefully, presumably using Skyfire as well. So do they both have to support Skyfire?
So today, the answer is yes. It is an open protocol in the sense that basically in the future, if someone wants to move away from us and use another provider, they can do that and they can have control over their own destiny. But very similar to how you described it, PayPal for AI, a lot of times we say Visa for AI, because really what we're doing is just simplifying that access and also the ability, because agents don't have their own identity, they don't have credit cards, they don't have driver licenses. Today, there's really no identity attached to these agents. So it's very difficult for them today to work within the current financial system because it's built around humans. That regulatory and the way transactions are done is really built for humans versus AI agents.
All right. Makes a ton of sense. I like that you're doing this as an open protocol. When you say it's an open protocol, you're describing that handshake, that interaction, and documenting that for the public to see and for others to adopt. Are you pursuing any formalized standards body or anything like that? Or where's your head at on that?
Yeah, not yet. But really the idea is that in the future, let's say your company, Chris AI, wants to adopt this protocol and use Skyfire as the payment mechanism. Basically, you can start doing that. And at some point in the future, you decide, hey, you don't want to use Skyfire. You have control over that protocol and ability to create your own essentially payment service behind it. And then in regards to your question about the actual payments and the transparency there, it is on chain. So you are able to see it. We use USDC, which is a basically digital US dollar. And so there's, blockchain really provides a ton of transparency, but also that mechanism enables much better record keeping and ability to see who you're dealing with on the other side. So with other agents that you may be selling or buying from, we can provide a lot more understanding of who you're dealing with, essentially.
Okay, so embarrassingly, I missed that for a second. So it is literally a crypto protocol, not just a open standards kind of REST protocol, standardization of those handoffs. So you're talking about there's actually a blockchain protocol formalized that's powering this. Is that right?
We run on existing blockchains. So we run on Coinbase's chain. And then our protocol is what determines essentially how that transaction happens and what the payments look like. And as part of that experience, we're also doing this thing called KYA, which is Know Your Agent. Know Your Agent is very similar to Know Your Business and Know Your, basically who the customer is. And as part of that, we basically know what agent belongs to which developer or to which enterprise, and therefore can provide a lot more understanding of how these payments look.
All right, Amir, so that makes a lot of sense. The next obvious question, I guess, is defensibility, right? So you're building an open protocol. It's on the blockchain. You're proudly, explaining how people can switch off, which is great for anti-lock-in, great for being user-centric. Tell me how this works for the business. Obviously, it makes agent developers more likely to be comfortable at the beginning, but also more likely that other competitors can spring up or Visa can go chase you or what have you and go from there. So how are you guys thinking about building a moat around the business?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, obviously we're first and we're moving as quickly as we can here. And there's been a really great demand here in the beginning. So that from that aspect, that's been awesome. Really how we're thinking about it is, as we're building this out, there's a lot of firsts in terms of understanding how agents work. And in addition to that, when you really think about it, a lot of this has to do with how identity and payments play a big factor in these payments. That piece is something that's completely new in this industry. Really, regulation doesn't really address it very well. When we believe we have a really good recipe for how we are developing that. And as we build that out, that becomes for us definitely a big moat. Another area is really attracting and making sure that our product is very simple in how we provide that to developers. Very similar way as early days of Stripe, how they made it really easy for internet companies to adopt their product. We're doing a very similar model with AI companies where we're building in a lot of capabilities that we know AI developers need in this journey and making the adoption of the product very simple. So if you are, let's say, need to monetize an AI agent, really it's less than a day of work for you to be able to start using our product and monetizing on our network. That's true also for someone who needs to be able to buy things on the network, whether it's data, whether it's paying for inference or other services. That's even easier. Just a few lines of code, you can be up and running.
So switching back into color commentary mode here a little bit, I like, first is good. Understanding the domain better than other people is important, right? You talked about this is more complicated than you might first imagine. There's really aspects of identity and so on. That makes sense to me. Making it easier, having a more polished product, I buy that. Where you have to be concerned or careful as a founder pitching, and for you guys specifically, is, you've mentioned regulation a couple of times. That can work for or against you, right? Because I'm hearing as an investor, it's hard. You have to deal with the government, and you are the tip of the spear behind which people can take advantage of all of your hard work and just come in up behind you. And so you're going to be bumping into a whole bunch of stuff while Visa maybe has the muscle to go do this thing. And so first is important. First to scale is more important, and network effects are even more important. And so still haven't heard anything around a real moat, right? Like first is not necessarily a moat. Figuring out some of the problems and going deeper than a Visa ever will go, I buy that. The laggards or the slow movers are going to maybe have to buy you because you will have a few trying to chase you, and some people are going to decide to buy you to keep up. But yeah, where's the real moat? Where's the real network effect other than, we're going to understand this better and earlier than everybody else? Craig, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, there's a couple aspects to what is required for a network here. The first is a payment protocol. You get folks on both sides adopting the payment protocol. That's developers and agents that are using this to pay for things, and that are businesses that are using it to accept payments from that. Now, I think you could create a moat around that. It's a standard networks type effect business. But where we're going is one where this becomes an actual open protocol. And the open protocol is one where anybody can adopt it, whether or not using Skyfire or not. So that seems to be working against the moat. But we feel very, very strongly that the future are these open protocols that are going to be adopted around the world without single companies owning them. Where we make money and where we have an ability to lock in is the concept that Amir brought up of identity. And so this is the concept of know your agent. Most businesses that we talk to today, or I should say a lot of businesses we talk to today, want to have some idea of who is buying the service, even though it's an agent. And so our ability to offer products like Know Your Agent to where there's an identity that locks in the agent using an open protocol is one where we think we have the ability of kind of growing an additional moat to where you have to be able to accept this protocol of identity and you have to be able to verify this protocol as well. So I think that's the first thing you're going to see where there's some actual lock-in. And then, of course, just like in any products business or any payments business, there's a ton of other products that get layered on top of that end up looking more and more like lock-in to this network.
Yeah, because the protocol itself works against lock-in, which is the point of it, right? It's an open protocol. But I buy that it's like an open source, open protocol model where you start running uphill and becoming the benevolent dictator of this protocol, right? So you're owning all of the services over the top. You're the protocol curator, and you have a really beneficial position in the market that helps you keep up and stay ahead of the rest of the ecosystem. So that makes a lot of sense.
That's right.
So tell me next, I guess, what's the next part of your story? The thing I'm curious about is traction. So this is, it feels like a real problem, feels like a real technology with a real product solution. Where are you guys at on the traction side?
Yeah. So in terms of traction, really, we're seeing, kind of three different categories of folks coming to us. Initially, a really great group of developers. As we launched this about 2 months ago, we constantly are receiving a great stream of indie developers, folks that are, in some cases, are being innovative in the AI space, are trying to really push the envelope on what's possible in the agentic world, and are building really cool products. And they want to understand how payments work. They want to understand how they can enable their agents to monetize or be able to pay for things as they go instead of having to buy tokens at every different company that they need access to. So it becomes a much easier, cheaper way for them to get up and running. And also, if they're outside the US, it makes it even more important that they use a product like Skyfire because they don't have easy access to banks and ability to be able to fund various types of tools that they need access to. So that's kind of a developer community that we've really started working with. Secondly, a lot of vertical AI companies that are building in this space. A company like Micro One, who is building essentially various HR tools, including recruiting and ability to be able to screen candidates, all automated and in a kind of a autonomous fashion. What they've enabled using our protocol is ability for someone to screen a candidate and be able to pay for that all autonomously, automatically. And that payment is made through Skyfire, call it, a couple of dollars for a screening. And then the candidate gets screened. Next thing you know, you've got results of that particular candidate. Now, this is a scenario where a lot of HR companies will use Micro One for these types of services, and they will have their own AI bots that will be doing these actions. And there are a lot of examples in this category where you've got AI companies who are going to be specialized for a particular function or task, and other AI companies will use them. So think of this as an agent-to-agent payment for a particular task to be done. And then the third category, and this is something that has surprised us, is we've really started getting a lot of inbound from companies that own data or have different types of data that they want to monetize. Today, a lot of companies in the data space are wholesale selling their access to their data. And this is typically a fairly large contract or BD activity that happens between two companies. And then once they have that contract in place, the other company can have access to all their data. That model is changing as AI is becoming much more prevalent, and you're starting to see many, many more companies needing access to data or agent developers needing access to data. What data owners are starting to see is this opportunity to monetize a much longer tail of potential customers versus these large monolithic deals that take not only a long time, but also have a much more limited number of customer set. So what we enable with Skyfire is the ability to on demand have access to this data and be able to consume it only for what you need But in the bigger picture, a lot more transactions, smaller dollar amounts, which account for more revenue for the data owner. So those are kind of the three areas of traction that we're seeing.
Got it. Got it. So that last one is surprising and very interesting indeed. So you're talking about a community of indie developers who are experimenting, playing, learning. Who knows where they'll go? Likely nowhere. Maybe one or two of them will pop. You're talking about funded startups, funded AI companies who have a serious business with, some serious traction of their own. And you're talking about potentially data brokers or data providers, owners who are providing this on-demand transactional access to their data at runtime, which is, that's a really interesting thing that I wouldn't have immediately thought of. So give me, those are the classes of traction you've got, or the personas of customers. Tell, to the degree you're willing to share, I know because this is not a real VC meeting, this is a public conversation. What are your numbers? What are the curves look like? What do the volumes look like here?
Definitely the volumes are looking, up and to the right. So that's always good to see. We're not at a point where we can share numbers yet, but what I can tell you is that, initially we started out was just giving access to our APIs just for really just testing initially. And then we started providing examples of what can be done with our tool set, that was really important because that gave a lot of new ideas to developers of, okay, here are different things that can be done. And as we started putting out more examples, and in fact, Craig, if you follow them on Twitter or follow Skyfire, try Skyfire on Twitter, you'll see a lot of examples that Craig goes through. That has also then gotten a lot more inbound interest, not only from developers, but companies who are starting to think, oh, okay, now this is really interesting. Now we can really start thinking about monetization. One of the areas where that brought a lot of new interest was companies who are building agent orchestration layers. This is where you go to build your agent, for example. Emergence is one of those companies, really amazing pedigree of founders that have come together to essentially build an enterprise platform that enables any enterprise to be able to launch agents very quickly. That's an example of an inbound that came as a result of some of the content we've developed. And that really was about how does a company like Emergence, who's doing orchestration, enable their agents out of the box to be able to monetize or be able to pay for services or other agents. And that we've started the early start of that process.
So, you're talking about a fourth category of traction, right? Which is platform integrations being baked into the other agent platforms, which makes sense. Tell me, are you doing that white label, or is that a branded piece of their platform where they're baking in Skyfire, Skyfire supported here?
Those are primarily branded experiences. In fact, they're all branded experiences. And the reason is because these folks are not just excited about monetization within their walled gardens. The big value prop they get from Skyfire is that their users can now go out and use tools that are not on their platform. And importantly, demand can come from outside of their platform to use the tools that are building on it. And so that gets back to some of the network effects where the folks who don't just want this white labeled internal thing. They really want an open way to receive payments that drives better supply on their platforms, as well as generating demand that they otherwise wouldn't have seen.
Yeah, so I want to switch to color commentary mode again. You guys have done two really smart things. As the person acting as the investor here, I'm hearing, right? Number one is, developers. You've not once in this conversation said anything and everything. So you haven't said this platform could be used for anything, right? You're providing specific use cases and examples that feel real, feel tangible, and feel like you already have demonstrated examples in the wild. And you've made that even more real by saying, we're putting real use cases, maybe even real sample code into the world to help give developers an idea of what to do. So reference code, reference apps, reference devices, if you think of Intel creating reference laptops, this is critical for developer platforms. So I'm hearing a kind of a level of sophistication that these guys know how to start building a developer ecosystem and inspiring creativity, the right kind of creativity from developers. You're also not talking about white label, which anyone who listens to this show a lot will know that I, for the most part, for most businesses, most of the time, I fucking hate white label. And you guys are explaining why here, right? No, these platforms don't just want the capability to do payments. They want our brand and they want our network effects. And where these are branded integrations. So you'd never imagine PayPal providing payment rails to, Twilio. and not
Mm-hmm.
being branded PayPal. So this is a very important thing. Again, as an investor, I'm hearing that's a network effect. That's a brand play. That is building, these are users and agents that you are owning a relationship with. You're not a technology vendor. You are a payments network. And that's very, very important. You're staying focused. And so that's all some kind of commentary on what I'm hearing as a third party here. Tell me, how are you overcoming the catch-22 of this network, right? So if I'm an agent and I want to pay another agent, presumably the other agent needs to have done the KYA, right? Know your agent, and needs to be able to accept payments through Skyfire or through this protocol. You're talking to me as a developer, you're at a hackathon, you're at a pitch meeting, and I'm saying, yeah, this sounds real slick. And when everyone's using Skyfire, this is going to be obvious and automatic and really seamless. What happens when the agent on the other side is not using Skyfire? Tell me, Amir, tell me, Craig, how are you helping to bootstrap this network?
Yeah. So, I think the way we went about this initially, and, I think this is like classic problem that a marketplace has. And we don't really see ourselves as a marketplace, but initially that's really what we are is we're enabling people to be able to pay for things and be able to monetize. So we started really thinking about, okay, what's important? Well, initially you want to have some sort of supply, things that people can pay for. And we started talking to a lot of folks that were offering different types of capabilities, whether it's easy access to LLMs or it's easy access to various types of tools like web scraping and proxies and things like that. We started bringing some of those folks on. And what we found is that developers at the end of the day want to be able to monetize, right? In order for them to survive and in order for them to really be able to innovate, they need to continue growing their revenue. So there was a lot of eagerness from that aspect, and there continues to be, which is great. That was a good initial indicator for us that there's a real need here. Then we turned our focus onto the demand side of the story. How can we bring on agents that can now pay for things because they're building these different agentic workflows, or they're building a specialized capability that needs another agent to help them out? And there, that's when we started talking to some of these folks on the orchestration layer side of things, because they're talking to a lot of different people that are starting to build these new use cases. So that's where the initial demand started coming from. And then lastly, what we realized is like, the perfect type of customer for us is one who brings both demand and supply, because that really gets the flywheel going much faster when we have both of those things together. If you think about the data side of things, a lot of times that is the case where there's already folks there that are essentially, have customers, but they want to be able to expand that customer list and be able to go to a much longer tail. And that's another area which kind of brings both the demand and the supply side of the equation.
Yes, that's super interesting, right? So you are really able to go to the supply side meaning people who can supply functionality that is worth paying for or data that's worth paying for, and say to them, hey, you need to get paid. Why not support Skyfire as your primary or one of your payment options? We're going to start bringing a bunch of demand against that payment instrument to you. And so like, instead of rolling your own or having some custom kludgy bespoke thing, which is never going to get adopted, or in addition to having that, integrate Skyfire, we're going to have a large and growing network of people who are going to pay you through that channel. I'm sure there's some skepticism at the very beginning of that, but hey, I need to integrate payments anyway. I might as well integrate the payments platform that supports agents. It has a bunch of features for that. And if someone comes to me and says, we want to use your services, it's like, yeah, here's an amazing documentation for an amazing payments protocol that's seamless and useful. And then you go to the demand side and start fulfilling your other end of that marketplace. That makes a ton of sense.
Chris, one piece of that surprised us is that's how we envisioned the sales process going on the sales side. We envisioned a lot of education, but what we found is most of the service providers are actually coming to Skyfire, believe it or not. And there's an understanding in the market right now that there's been a fundamental change in the way that software is going to be delivered without us having to do that education. And the folks who come to us believe that their next million users probably won't be humans. They'll be these things, these AI-powered agents. And so your story is correct, except that there's such an acceptance on the supply side that they're going to be selling to a brand new consumer base that I've been surprised we haven't had to do that selling or that education at this point.
Okay, so tell me more about that. They're coming to you, but obviously they have to know about you, right? And so what is your go-to-market strategy? how are you putting yourself in front of them or within their line of sight so that they might have that notion and then they go, yeah, we got to call these guys. So tell me about your go-to-market tactics.
Yeah. So initially we had very good penetration in kind of traditional press. So TechCrunch, Wall Street Journal, etc., which I think raised the temperature and just notified the world of Skyfire. The constant drumbeat, though, has been the demos that we talked about and actually putting out content in the form of YouTube videos that show how agents can pay for things and how businesses can monetize them, as well as blogs that go through exactly how these AI agents are working. And just a note is that people are so hungry for tangible, real examples that they can touch and actually wrap their heads around that I've found very basic content has had an incredible ROI in terms of generating inbounds to Skyfire.
So that's another lesson for founders, and which is, new hot space, content marketing that will just rank in algorithms and SEO is a very powerful tool. Education, even basic education, is very, very useful. And as an investor, I'm hearing, well, these guys are not, this is a low touch, low cost way of acquiring users. I have not heard you talk about like enterprise sales, talking to big legacy companies, which for my money personally is a huge, awesome thing. But how are you thinking about enterprises, about larger companies, about these large data owners? Are they also coming to you? Are you going to them? What sort of enterprise requirements and SLAs and what have you? Are they a distraction for you right now, or are they part of the strategy?
Well, they're definitely part of the strategy, but Chris, as you obviously pointed out, those are tough, right? So you want to balance those and make sure that you don't get sucked into these long sales cycles at the early stage of the company when maybe you don't even have a product that fits their needs initially. So we've been very careful about that and really focused on opportunities where we believe we have a solution that fits their needs very quickly. And more importantly, that we can show off some of those examples. Now, what we have done is we've had kind of this strategy of going after certain companies, especially in the AI space, as we've made progress with not only the product, but some of the use cases. So definitely going after some bigger companies now. But again, we have a plan behind it, which is pretty well thought out in terms of who we want, because some of those companies create not only demand, but also have supply for us. And really our thing is we want to be the monetization layer for this AI space. So whoever can help us in that journey is who we're going after. And we're definitely starting to speak with some larger companies. And a lot of times those conversations end up being extremely fruitful if our strategies tend to see eye to eye. They're just starting to think about the same things, which is how do we allow monetization for developers? How do we make this ecosystem more productive when it comes to generating revenues, not only for themselves, but those who are using them?
Yeah. So some more commentary here, right? Your vision, and you've repeated it multiple times, is monetization layer for the AI ecosystem. It's not to sell tech to enterprises. So this goes back to the white label discussion as well. You are being appropriately careful about chasing big ticket sales to big enterprise customers to sell them technology, right? You're building a standardized product, which is this lightweight payments protocol with some, scaffolding over the top. And you want to talk to enterprises about, like, you can grab this lightweight protocol and lightweight scaffolding, and you can join the ecosystem or not. But we're not going to come in here and do a professional services engagement for you and do a whole bunch of enterprise integration and a whole bunch of enterprise crap just because you have deep pockets and lots of problems that you need solved on your side. This is a critical lesson for founders who are listening, right? There's so many founders I talk to in my advisory work who are like chasing revenue because their investors are dumb, and they're chasing the biggest, deepest pockets as far, just all they're interested in is the biggest check size, rather than chasing volume and chasing a large market and chasing a large vision, which is, a very simple solution, payment protocol, to build a very wide layer of capability across the entire ecosystem, not just for one enterprise. So, kudos to you guys. And that's a great part of the story as well.
Yeah. I mean, just on that, by the way, Chris, I think I've been on the other side where, I was bootstrapping a company. And I think in that scenario, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And you go after that NRE money or that consulting money that, gets your company to the next step. In fact, we did that with Jibe. Our first check was not from an investor. It was $1.5 million from a customer. But I think if you have raised money and you have a vision, you can't get distracted by some NRE money or some consulting money that really isn't really revenue. It's more actually just some customization work, essentially.
Yeah, so just to unpack that jargon, right? NRE is non-recurring engineering or non-recurring work. And, this is when a customer says to you, we'll pay you a crap load of money to build something we need or to integrate the thing you're doing into what we're doing. Yeah, and of course, Amir, you're right. The thing is, it's a catch-22, right? So if you go to a VC and say, hey, we were doing a bunch of NRE and we're making a crap load of revenue, and when they dig in and they go, well, that revenue is from custom work for custom integration for a custom bespoke thing, they're going to go, well, you are not disciplined. You do not have a clear vision. You are mired in all of this legacy bloat and enterprise bloat. We're not going to give you the capital to focus. And so the ideal world, and the world is never ideal, is you start focused, you remain focused, you demonstrate your focus to investors who are smart, and they go, these guys are focused. Here's a bunch of money to stay focused and to execute on a game-changing business and idea versus, getting sucked into black holes with one-off customers and implementations.
Precisely.
Over 7,000 global companies like Atlassian, Dovetail, FlowHealth, and Quora all use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. Why aren't you? Get $1,000 off Vanta when you go to vanta.com/TSP. That's VANTA.com/TSP for the Startup Podcast to get $1,000 off.
All right. So the next question is, the typical VC question is, all right, what's your business model? You've got 4 some categories of customers here. You've got a number of use cases that seem obvious. This is obviously a large and growing space. Anybody who asks you, what's the total addressable market? Is probably a fucking clown. How are you taking a piece of this value creation?
Yeah. So, look, we see this as an opportunity to completely do new rails. And these new rails are obviously providing value to agent developers of all sizes. And that's really important for us. So we want to make it easy for them to adopt it. Our thinking right now is we can provide the transactions and the cost behind it at a fairly attractive model. Today it's free, and it may continue to be free for the foreseeable future. And maybe at some point we start taking a percentage from those who are putting a lot of volume through our rails. But really where we see the opportunity for a lot of value creation, but also our ability to be able to generate revenues is going to be around value-added services. This is the KYA that we talked about earlier, and we believe there's a lot of value there, both for sellers and buyers. The fact that we verify and we have this verified by mark, essentially think of it, although it's all programmatic through APIs, but the fact that they've been verified by us has value for both enterprises and small developers. So that's an area for us to be able to monetize. And then there are a lot of services similar to that is in our roadmap that we believe will have ability for us to create value and also extract value from it, especially because in this new world of agents, you need all kinds of new capabilities that don't exist today. So that's what we're really excited about.
So again, to provide some commentary here, what a VC is hearing, what they're hearing is these guys get it, right? Again, it's not about one enterprise deployment. It's not about revenue. It's about the first to scale wins. It's about network effects, and it's about changing behavior, which is the hardest thing in the world, and getting your wedge into the world, getting your foot in the door, getting your brand in front of people. You talked about the verified by brand, which is brilliant. You guys want everyone everywhere in AI integrating you and facilitating their transactions by you. That is priceless. It's more valuable than $1, $100, $1,000, $1 million. It's more valuable than $10 million, right? And it's priceless. And I'm speaking to founders listening here, guys, who don't have the benefit of your wisdom. Getting yourselves as the de facto payments rails for all agents everywhere is worth subsidizing all installations everywhere. And then you add layers and layers of services over the top. You can monetize volume, you can do whatever. And then the winners are already using you. They didn't have any money at the beginning, but they pop later. And you can start thinking about, taking a small piece of those transactions and upselling them to your other services. This is really, really smart. It's really uncommon outside of Silicon Valley. You would be surprised. And it's the reason why companies out here win, because they're willing to think three-dimensionally. So congratulations to you.
Chris, we're lucky to have investors who believe in that same vision. I don't think you can do this sort of thing without investors who actually understand that dynamic that you just explained, right? And I've seen it play out in the past, right? Because a lot of times investors will push you, oh, we need to see the first dollar of revenue. That's really important, which it is in some businesses. In this business, it actually doesn't matter because frankly, if you can't grab, as you said, a very large number of install base, then it's kind of like, who cares? You generated some money, early on.
Yeah. So if you meet an investor who says we need to see the first dollar of revenue, right away, politely try to explain to them why they're wrong. And if they refuse to understand or understand quickly, politely get up and walk away. And if you're one of these investors who is listening and going, oh, they don't, business requires revenue and you boys don't know what you're talking about, just delete your account. Please just delete your account or stop listening to this podcast. All right, boys. So what is keeping you up at night about the business? What is the next hurdle, the next gate, the next opportunity that you feel like you need to land to get to the next plateau, the next lily pad in the journey?
The market dynamics of matching supply and demand are what keep me up at night. Where I have supply that is interested in selling into this brand new market, and I have this brand new market that's interested in buying in this fashion, and I need to be able to match those up right now. And right now, a lot of that decision making, because we're early, a lot of that decision making is where we put our resources in terms of who we go out and sell to and who we bring on the market. But the thing that I'm most excited about and scared about is getting to that lightning moment to where you have self-sustaining demand and self-growing supply on the market to where I'm not actually having to do this, like, okay, who do we need to go out and bring on to this? Who do we need to go out and bring on to Skyfire right now? That is what spooks me, because the tech is in a pretty good place right now. There's a lot of value-added stuff that we're adding on that I'm excited about. The initial customers are happy, but how do you get to the flywheel of that network effect? And there's a little bit of magic there. And so what scares me is like, can we actually get to that spark? And I think we're close, but that's where my head's at most of the time.
And I think on that point, Chris, one of the other things is that we're getting pulled into all kinds of directions right now. There are many different use cases we didn't even talk about today that, every day we have meetings with various types of either smaller companies or even larger companies, and kind of being disciplined. In the beginning, we said, let's do everything that comes to us because we don't yet know where we're going to see a lot of good product market fit. So we want to, we'll see what's out there. We're starting to see initial areas where there is more concentration and also more areas where we have a stronger belief that we're going to get even better product market fit. So having the discipline to focus in those areas and start doubling down in those areas is going to be also, I think, a very important aspect of our future here. And it's very hard to do because you want to do everything because everything looks like transactions to me, and I see that as opportunity. And I think that's where, I rely on my team also to give me feedback to say, okay, take it easy. Like we don't need to go after everything. We should just make sure that we get these other ones right. So I think that's been really important here in the journey.
Yeah. So, you just said the magic words that we talk about a lot about on this show, which is discipline and focus. There is a famous saying, which is opportunity at first appears like hard work. I extended that saying, or I co-opted that saying to add that distractions at first appear like opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because when you're doing something cool and exciting and interesting and novel, everybody wants to give you opportunities. There's opportunities everywhere. There's opportunities all over the place. And, just to keep hammering on enterprise customers, they want to give you plenty of opportunity to solve all of their problems because they're slow, fat, and stupid. And so they're like, please, we have lots of opportunities. We'll give you lots of money. And you need to decide what is the biggest opportunity and what is the number one thing you need to do to go win that biggest opportunity. The other thing is, this is a marketplace and there are network effects, or rather it's a network, let's say, and there is a supply and demand problem. And so, obviously the key here is going to be productization of everything. The messaging, the onboarding, the documentation, the use cases, the reference apps, so that the small and medium guys can self-serve with minimal distraction for you guys, and the medium to larger opportunities or the opportunities you want to focus on can be the ones you spend most of your time on. Obviously, supply and demand mismatches are a nightmare for any marketplace and network. Coming from Uber, I know that all too well.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that strikes me, though, is, the way you focus, and maybe you're alluding to this already. Maybe you want to focus around clusters, right? Or you want to cluster around certain use cases. Like, we really believe that data access, or even data access in science. So science data access is the thing we want to do, because that's a hard problem. Or we want to focus on bookings, travel bookings, right? And so you might spend a lot of time figuring out who's on the supply side of booking travel and how do we enable those, and who's on the demand side of booking travel. And you're unlocking supply and demand in these clusters or categories or use cases. And you pick 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 of those, depending on how well funded you are and how much you can spin up concerted effort against each cluster. Is that how you're thinking about it, or are you slicing and dicing in a different way?
I think it's very similar to what you said, Chris. I think some of it is, I think funny enough, you brought the travel example. We get that all the time. There's going to be phases for how these different types of experiences start really coming to market. And at least the way we're thinking about it, based on what we're seeing today, is that, we believe B2B is going to lead the way, but the B2C is going to unlock the masses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And initially, we have a lot more control on B2B because you don't have as big of a long tail of endpoints that you got to go after. And then in the B2C space, you can work with already established players that can unlock some of that long tail for you. So right now, because we understand the B2B space really well, it's something that we've done in the past. We really want that to be where we start, because we believe we can unlock a lot of volume there in terms of transactions. And we're starting to see the kind of the initial fruit of the labor in terms of the focus we've had there. And I think we're just really thinking about this more as phases right now. And the current phase is going to be really focused on the B2B use cases.
Yeah, the key to focus is phasing, because it's not that you're saying no to things forever. It's you're saying not right now. And so a lot of companies that I'm advising they have all the great opportunities on a dartboard, and they're sort of chasing all of them at the same time. The simplest thing in the world, the simplest solution, is to organize it across the dimension of time, right? And so you just said the magic word there, phasing. Phase 1 is B2B, phase 2 is whatever. And I imagine within B2B, you're slicing it even more thinly, and there are phases within that phase. And so just to be clear, though, so that I'm clear and the audience is clear, when you say B2B, what you're saying is there are agentic use cases in the B2B space, maybe computer vision or number crunching or what have you. And there are certain supply and demand in those business to business interactions, I imagine. And so you're unlocking those use cases for those business to business agent interactions. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's correct.
So what we see it growing right now is this concept of personas. And that is agents actually taking the place of individuals who work within businesses. And one where there's a lot right now is in marketing, and another one is in recruiting. So on the marketing side, a lot of these companies, especially ones that are doing consumer packaged goods, need to go out and actually understand what's going on in the competitor space. And so an agent-to-agent experience there is one where you have an agent that needs information in terms of what the competitors are doing. That agent will then farm out the task of going out and scraping the web to find out what your competitors are doing, what's on their websites, what are they talking about. It'll farm out to another agent. Hey, go on Amazon and pull down all the prices, make a comparison against the reviews. And then a third agent that will package this all up into a report to the manager agent that says, okay, here's where we're getting our butt kicked. Here's where we have a competitive advantage. Here are ideas in terms of product gaps versus these specific competitors, and package that all up. And so right there, you have an example where you have 4 or 5 different agents that have essentially replaced the concept of a competitive analysis team in a large CPG firm.
All right, awesome, guys. So I love it. This sounds exciting. PayPal for agents, Visa for agents, building an open protocol, powering the payments layer of the AI world, staying focused, lots of inbound demand, solving the supply side and the demand side in really clever ways in clusters and, in small verticals. You guys rock. Where does this all go over the long term? Where do you see the future of the AI world in general, agents more specifically, and payments more specifically again?
So AI and agents are going to fundamentally change the way that we interact with the internet. At least in Silicon Valley, it's fairly well understood that the concept of websites is going to be like rotary phones, of having to type in a URL address. And so where the future is one where agents are able to go out across the internet, programmatically pull information from different sources, and then deliver it to you in a programmatic new interface. Now, that's kind of futuristic, but it's happening a lot sooner than we think. What I don't think has been fully thought through is how does commerce happen in that kind of fashion?
Mm-hmm.
We've spent so much time optimizing the checkout experience for eyeballs. And I can tell you the future is not going to be these agents screen scraping, counting pixels, and trying to plug in an old credit card number. It's going to need new ways of actually paying on an on-demand basis via APIs and programmatically. And that's one thing that I get excited about for the future of Skyfire is that we're talking a lot of great use cases today, but I think in the future, this kind of payment protocol and the products that Skyfire brings to market really fundamentally changes the way that commerce works. And it's going to give folks like Visa, MasterCard, and these card networks a run for their money because it's a better way of doing this for a new customer base, which are these agents that are going to be the primary drivers of commerce in the future.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And this idea that websites, I've heard some people say websites completely go away. And you didn't say that. You said that they're going to start feeling like the rotary phone. I think they're going to find their level, right? The same way radio didn't kill the newspaper, TV didn't kill radio, the web didn't kill TV. Everything starts to find its level. And so I think there'll still be websites for human beings to go check out. But I think you're right that the vast majority of information and transactions will be occurring through agents, your personal agent talking to a cluster of other agents. And so then thinking about discovery mechanisms, right? Maybe some metadata at a URL, because like, okay, this is your web page. Where is your agent endpoint so that I can speak to the agent? Where's your Skyfire endpoint so I can pay? That makes a hell of a lot of sense. And also for founders listening, you'll notice the boys didn't start talking about some pie in the sky, ultra futuristic thing at the very beginning of the pitch, right? There's often this tension of like, how do I explain I have a big vision, but it's not boiling the ocean? There are a few ways of doing that, but what we've done here is talk very pragmatically about a real problem, payments, with real developers and real people who have real data access problems and real problem to monetize their utility or their data. And we've talked relatively pragmatically about that. And it's only at the end that, Craig and Amir are touching on what is this highfalutin fancy future that might be possible so that the VCs start to salivate and go, oh yeah, shit, we can make billions of dollars here. But I have to first believe you guys understand a real problem and you have a real wedge in the world. Before that, I believe you that you're going to go, change everything as we know it. All right. Well, I buy everything you said, boys. I like the way you present. You're clearly pragmatic, clear-eyed, but also have a big vision. How much are you raising here? How much is it going to cost me to buy a piece of your company? What is it that it's going to take to get involved?
Well, Chris, we're raising $8 million so that we can really push through this initial phase, and we would be very excited to have you on board.
So just to be clear, we're role playing now of what your last round. So you're not actually currently raising 8 million. Is that correct?
That's correct. We've raised, we've essentially raised 9.5 in total now for our fundraise.
Okay. So you're raising 8 million. But you stopped there. You did not tell me precisely what you're going to go do with that. You did not tell me your valuation. You did not tell me how much of the round is filled. Is that deliberate? Tell me how you think about that ask.
I mean, first of all, I do usually talk about what we're going to do with the money, but I think you first want to understand whether there's interest from the investor at this point before you get into too much detail. And then more importantly, I strongly believe that you never talk about valuation.
Mm-hmm.
That's really up to the eye of the beholder, your investor. So they really should be the ones telling you what they think you're worth. And then you can decide to accept that or not accept it. But I think it's really important to just focus on, first of all, do you like each other? Because it's just as important for you, to like the investors you're bringing on board. And then more importantly, then getting into kind of what you're going to do with the money and who else you're going to potentially bring as part of this round.
Yes, exactly. You said the magic word. Again, this is, I think, obvious to us, but it's not obvious to many founders everywhere. The market sets the valuation, not you. And specifically, the lead investor with the term sheet that you like. And the valuation is only one lever, right? There are other levers of clawbacks and preferences and so on. And so you talk about what your business needs, the market decides what it's worth. And typically how much you're raising and for how long and what have you, and you're probably not going to sell more than 20% of the company, the valuation sort of figures itself out. So that it's actually more or less a number that is automatically set. All right, guys. Well, where are you in your process? And this is, I'm now again role-playing as a VC. Where are you in your process? How much of the round is filled? What's your timeline? Tell me about what it takes to get on the train.
Yeah, Chris, we've been talking to a lot of great investors. So I think, we've got some decent interest now, and we'd really like to kind of wrap this up in the next 2 weeks. So we'd love to at least understand whether this is something you're interested in pursuing with us. And we've really enjoyed speaking with you. So we, obviously would love for you to be part of this round. And we're also seeking to figure out, who is going to lead the round. That's something that, again, we've had interest from others, and we're trying to kind of bring in all this together in the next couple of weeks.
2 weeks with no lead is pretty damn aggressive.
This is AI, Chris.
that is pretty optimistic. Yeah, AI. That's true. That's true. FOMO is back. FOMO is back. All right, boys. Well, this is very cool. So just, for those listening, maybe they're AI developers who want to get involved. Maybe they're VCs who are like, shit, I want to get in on that round. How can people learn more? How can they start developing? How can they reach out to you? Where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, so our website, skyfire.xyz. We have play with the app there. So sign in, create an account. I'll throw you a couple cents so you can actually start making your first Skyfire transactions. And then we're on Twitter as well at @TrySkyfire. We're pretty active on both of those, and so reach out in any way you want there, and we'll be in touch.
Well, an absolute pleasure getting to know you guys and getting to know the business. I think you're thinking about it in all the right ways, and it's one of the most important parts of the ecosystem. Close to the money and definitely on trend. So congratulations to you both.
Chris, thank you so much. Appreciate this.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
All right, that's our first Spotlight episode. If you'd love to talk about your VC pitch and get support making your company one of the very best in the world, feel free to learn more about my advisory work over at chrissaad.com/advisory. We can jump on a quick call. I can learn about what you're doing and help you kick ass. Catch you in the next one, guys. Bye-bye.
Today's episode of the Startup Podcast was brought to you by Vanta. Vanta automates compliance for SOC 2, ISO 27001, and more, saving you time and money while helping you build customer trust. Plus, you can streamline security reviews by automating questionnaires and demonstrating your security posture with a customer-facing trust center, all powered by Vanta AI. Over 7,000 global companies already use Vanta. Why don't you? Get $1,000 off Vanta when you go to vanta.com/TSP. That's VANTA.com/TSP for the Startup Podcast to get $1,000 off.